Be over in 5 minutes, Mr. Pat. What is this blade Vorsa capsules?
Bill.
Didn't you hear what I said?
Yes, sir.
What kind of tricks you playing anyway? Well, why didn't you deliver him right away? Don't you know that boy's very quick?
You're hurting my sword here.
You lazy little...
Mr. Gower, you don't know what you're doing. You put something wrong in those capsules. I know you're unhappy. You got the telegram and you're upset. You put something bad in those capsules. It wasn't your fault, Mr. Gower. Just look and see what you did. Look at the bottle you took the powder from. It's poison, I tell you, it's poison. I know you feel bad.
Oh.
Don't hurt my Sawyer again.
Oh, no,
Don't hurt
no,
my
no.
Sawyer again.
Oh, George. George.
Oh, Mr. Gower, I would never tell anyone. I know your feelings. I would never tell so. Close to die.
And that was a scene from It's a Wonderful Life, starring Jimmy Stewart, way back from 1946. And Gene, that's I'm sure pharmacy errors go back further than that.
Yeah, pharmacy has been in existence a long time. You know, for ever since people started putting two herbs together. I guess it had pharmacopoeias back in ancient times.
So it's nothing new that we have pharmacies, and nothing new that people are involved. They make mistakes. So,
well, yeah, the pharmacies that we have now are regulated. And before I get too far into this, I want to thank John Leffler for consulting with me. He's a professor at South College. He teaches ethics in the law there. He's an adjunct professor, and he was kind enough to consult with me on this issue. But there are state and federal laws that control pharmacies now. I mean, things are a lot more controlled now than they used to be. And we also have the FDA, who looks at drugs to make sure drugs are safe and effective, or at least does the minimum standards for safety and effectiveness.
So as far as a pharmacy's liability, what are their responsibilities exactly?
A pharmacy has a professional duty to the patient to do no harm. And they are available for consultation with the patient, and they need to make sure their primary duty is to fill the prescription correctly. And then there are other duties as well concerning monitoring the types of drugs that the patients may have, and we can get into those in more detail.
Well, we have a brief slide up. It shows just, I mean, part of the retail area, and then you can see the hundreds, if not thousands and thousands of pill bottles in the back. Right. I mean, you have to be familiar with so much to be one of these.
Yeah, a pharmacist, they understand drug reactions, they understand drug interactions, drug-drug interactions, and it's a good idea to have a relationship with a single pharmacy and a single pharmacist, so that you could go in and you can ask questions. I mean, you don't know whether, if you're buying a prescribed drug, but you want to take one of these over-the-counter drugs, is that a good idea? Well, you can ask the pharmacist, and the pharmacist can advise you on what to take.
And a few years ago, there was a case with Dennis Quaid's children where they were given medicine where the labels looked almost exactly alike except for the dosage.
Yeah, now this is a standard.
And here's an example of another one.
Yeah, but they all look the same. Yeah, when a pharmacist receives a subscription, or a prescription, excuse me, receives a prescription from a doctor, he can receive it either in writing or on the phone, and it is the pharmacist's duty to make sure that he is filling that prescription as it is written. And if there's a question about what is written, then he must call the doctor and confirm that. Now, that is one of the errors, is when there's the wrong dosage, or the wrong strength, the wrong scheduling, and sometimes the wrong drug. As you've shown here, you got tramadol and trazodone, two different drugs for two different problems. And if the writing's not clear, then sometimes they can put in the wrong pills.
Well, how has the advent or more reliance on pharmacy techs either improved or caused this problem to get worse?
Well, we have a lot of chain pharmacies now, and most of them have a system in place. It's typically a computer-type system where they will have several checks and balances that they will go through to make sure that the prescription is properly filled, as well as to check on any drug-drug interactions. And that's why it's a good idea to buy your drugs at a single pharmacy, so that the pharmacist can see if you're taking any drugs that might interact with some other drugs. Because some people, for instance, would go see an internist and they'll get a prescription for certain drugs. Then they may go see a gastroenterologist or a pulmonologist or somebody or an allergist for some other type of drug. And maybe some of those drugs should not be taken together. Maybe some of those drugs, maybe they're different drugs that would be better. And so if you go into different pharmacies with these different prescriptions, sometimes the pharmacist isn't going to know. Now, you've asked about text. I think text would help with the just the systems in place and doing a lot of the work of just making the routine work and making sure that the prescriptions are properly filled and that they're cross-checked.
Are the standards, you think, lax or better at chain stores?
Each chain has its own computer system. And now there are very few independent pharmacies left, so we're looking at chain pharmacies for nearly all of our pharmaceutical needs. One exception to that is being mail order. And there's really no guarantee as to what their controls are, because, for instance, the pharmacies here in Savannah, they would be subject to state law as well as federal law and how they're going to prescribe. But if you order from outside of the country, you don't really know what checks and balances are in place.
As far as, could the drugs be counterfeit, for example, if you ordered from Mexico or Canada?
They could be. That's more of a national issue with the quality control from the national governing board, like the FDA, is more in control of making sure that the drugs are the way they're supposed to be. Now, pharmacies, for instance, if you have a local pharmacy, say that is compounding its own drugs, then issues of whether the drug is actually what it is supposed to be become more relevant.
Would you rather have your drugs compounded?
Myself, I've never had compounded drugs. There are some doctors who prefer to have drugs more custom-made, and they do prescribe certain compounding by the pharmacists, and there are only certain pharmacists that do the compounding, so that just puts more of a duty on the pharmacist. He's not just putting pills in the bottle at that point, he's actually making the drug.
So in the event that there's a problem, mistake, they have liability that you can go after for damages, pain and suffering, etc.?
Yeah, they would have standards they have to follow, both state and national and customary in their profession. And if there is a problem, whoever has a problem needs to be sure to save the pills or whatever they think is the problem. For instance, sometimes there may have been too much dosage, too much strength, or a bad schedule of the drug, and they need to save the pill bottles and everything associated with them.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Gene. We'll be back with Doug Andrews and Richard Sanders with Viewer Mail right after this.